What does a man with an industrial-strength vacuum, 46 pheasants, and millions of mosquitoes have in common? They are all involved in a Montanan biowar. The ancient warlord Sun Tzu proposed a set of principles to defeat one's enemy. Knowing thy enemy will be the first and most important principle used to fight the war on West Nile virus in Montana. The only way to understand the enemy is by getting to know its mosquito first. And the man who knows mosquitoes is veterinary entomologist Dr. Greg Johnson. His research aims to find out where and why they live and breed, how the virus infiltrates Montanan mosquitoes, and then hopefully figure out a way to use the mosquitoes' strategies against the virus.
It's difficult to predict what's going to happen with West Nile virus, and that's because there's a number of factors involved. It's a very complex biological cycle because we're dealing with mosquitoes, we're dealing with a virus, we're dealing with bird reservoirs, and we're dealing with weather components and amounts of water. So there's a whole lot of things that go in to determine whether or not we're going to have a mosquito problem and also a West Nile virus problem.
After Greg's first full summer investigating West Nile virus, he exposed the enemy's preferred mosquito.
When we first started working with West Nile virus in Montana, we suspected that Culex tarsalis was the vector, but we didn't have any proof. And when we're working with insect vectors, it's important to be able to prove what is transmitting the virus because these things change with time.
The reason Greg knows so much about the tarsalis mosquito is because he and his team have spent the last 3 summers catching as many mosquitoes as they can. They use specially designed traps baited with carbon dioxide. This gas tricks the female mosquitoes into thinking there is a breathing mammal or bird nearby. The traps normally won't attract males because they don't feed on animals. They prefer flower nectar instead. Greg conducts a lot of his field surveillance on the breeding habits of the tarsalis mosquito. Since this mosquito opts to reproduce in standing water, he wants to know if the extra ponds created by coal bed methane development in Wyoming might be one of the reasons the population is booming. To help test the question about the coal bed methane ponds, Greg enlists the help of 46 pheasants. Over the summer, each bird will be positioned in either a coal bed methane area or an area without fossil fuel development. The pheasants will have 2 primary missions. 1, to attract mosquitoes, and 2, to get bit by mosquitoes. But before they can go to their posts, each has to go through a blood work physical, mainly to make sure they are West Nile free. If they pass, Greg and his team will vacuum each bird, hopefully catching the blood-fed mosquitoes.
West Nile virus is a bird virus, and it primarily circulates between birds and mosquitoes. The reason we use birds is that they are actually one of the best warning systems for virus activity in an area because it's going to happen in the birds first before it spills over to horses or humans. The other use for sentinel birds is putting them in a situation like a cage where the insects come in to feed on the birds actually get trapped. So not only can you determine if virus transmission was occurring, but you can also capture the mosquitoes that came in and fed on the birds. So this is a battery-operated aspirator. It's a device that's used to suck up the insects through this plastic tube. And then once I identify where a mosquito is located in here, I will stick the aspirator in and go up into the corner. Turn it on and begin aspirating the mosquito out. It's blood fed.
In the meantime, while everyone waits to hear the results from the birds, Greg starts a new investigation. He wants to know what strategies the Tarsalis mosquito uses to survive a Montana winter. But he has to find the mosquitoes first. This is tricky, because in the fall, the remaining Tarsalis mosquitoes get reprogrammed. They no longer search for blood meals. Instead, they feed on flower nectar and look for places to hide.
Many of the insects that overwinter have the ability to develop a form of antifreeze, and this prevents ice from forming. And it's a strategy that works very well for these insects because they can tolerate temperatures of minus 20 to minus 25 below zero.
The agricultural DVAC will hopefully help sniff out the hidden mosquitoes. If Greg and his team can capture enough Tarsalis, they should be able to tell if the virus can survive a Montana winter or not. This knowledge might help the prediction of West Nile in the spring.
We're not sure at this point where Culex tarsalis hides in the winter, and so it's looking for the proverbial needle in the haystack, but I think we can eventually find it. Haven't seen any yet.
After a long summer, it looks like it was a bad year for the enemy and an inconclusive year for surveillance.
This decline means that we didn't see or have much activity in 2004. I don't see that it has anything to do with 2005. So it's something that just because it disappears for a year or two, we should not stop studying it. This is the important time to study it and then try and find out what actually makes it happen. I suspect that West Nile virus, it will return once all the conditions are just right for mosquitoes and the virus. And we don't know what all those conditions are right now. We don't know how they have to line up, but it will happen again.